We want to welcome a very special guest today to our Read Across America event here at Elmwood Park Zoo, Mr. Jerry Spinelli. Of course, as everyone knows, Mr. Spinelli is a popular children's book author, has written numerous award-winning novels, including Maniac McGee, everybody's favorite, Loser, Stargirl, which was made into a Disney Plus movie, and most recently, The Warden's Daughter. Jerry, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Stan. Happy to join you.
That's excellent. What we'd like to do is we have some questions that were submitted to us earlier. We can talk about that for a little bit, and then hopefully you have a couple of things that you want to share with everyone watching today, especially on the importance of reading during this unprecedented time. Everybody uses that phrase, I know, but that we're living through here. So let's just start from basically the beginning. That what inspired you to start writing?
The first thing I can recall writing was a poem about Mexico in grade school. The first time I got myself in print was in the Norristown Times-Herald. And that was a poem about a football game between Norristown High and Lower Merion in 1958. From then on, I began to think that this writing thing is something I would like to do. And nobody told me how long it was going to take to become successful at it. But I knew by the time I left high school and went off to Gettysburg College that that's what I wanted to do.
And so the first thing you had published was in the Times-Herald. You said 11th grade, I believe. When was the first book you had published? When did that take place, and what book was it?
The first published book was the fifth book that I wrote. The first four books that I wrote over a period of about 15 years, nobody wanted. So I kept trying, and the fifth one that I wrote became the first one that was published. It was published by Little Brown and Company, and it's called, well, sometimes I forget the title because I wanted to call it Stuff. The editor didn't agree with me. So he called it Space Station 7th Grade, and that's what it's called to this day, Space Station 7th Grade.
That's what happens when you have publishers there. They want to do it their way.
Yeah.
And how old were you at the time?
I was, I guess, in my 30s.
Now, this one is very interesting, at least I find it interesting, is how do you select the names of the characters that you use in your books?
That's a question I do get a lot. And to this day, I don't have a real clear answer to it. Names are something that I compare it to kind of trying on clothes at your favorite men's or women's shop. You try it on, and if it looks good, if it feels good, you know it. You just know it. There's no reasoning behind it. You just know it. And that's the way it is with names. If a name just feels right for a character, if a name fits a character, then that's the one I'll use. And sometimes the name is the first thing to come even before I make a note. And sometimes a name doesn't come to me till halfway through the book. So it varies.
I find that very interesting, very interesting. And we were talking, or you said something earlier about how you wanted a different name for your first book that was published. So this question kind of is kind of a follow-up to that. It says, how do you handle criticism or negative reviews of your work?
Well, you have to handle it, because if you can't, then you don't become a writer, you become a plumber, where people are not criticizing you. What I've learned to do is pretty much just not read reviews. Fortunately, it hasn't been too much of a problem because I haven't gotten an awful lot of bad ones, but every writer gets his or her share of bad reviews and bad reactions and readers that don't like them. readers that despise their work. It happens in every aspect of the entertainment field, of which writing is a part. And so it's just part of life. You take the bad with the good. It helps to have a wife who keeps reminding you that you're okay. And you just move on to the next thing, the next book, the next page.
Well, kind of as a follow-up to that is what is the most difficult part of the writing process for you?
I would say what one writer refers to as the miserable middles, especially if we're talking about a novel, which means a couple hundred pages, say. And you're starting off all enthusiastic and excited with this great new idea that you have. And I can tell you that beginnings are a dime a dozen. I have 100 of them ready to go. But when you're 50, 75, 100 pages in, then it becomes a more plodding process. The initial enthusiasm is gone. The finish line, the end of the tunnel is still out of sight. And you have to remember something that someone said about writing, and that is that writing is only 10% inspiration, 90% perspiration. It's work. And so you just treat it like work, and you wake up in the morning and you go to your office or wherever it is that you happen to write, and you sit down, and whether you feel like it or not, you start to work. And the paragraphs add up, and the pages add up, and the months add up. And before you know it, 300 days and 300 pages have gone by, and you've gotten yourself a book.
Excellent. That's excellent. I know for a lot of kids out there, their favorite book is and was and will be for a long time to come, Maniac McGee. I think we had 3 or 4 copies of it at our house as well. But what was your favorite book as a child?
Yeah, you know what? There's not a lot to choose from because I have an unusual background for someone who became a writer. Most writers will tell you that they were writing little plays for their playmates to put on in the backyard, or they were reading Little Women at the age of 6. All I read was Bugs Bunny comic books and read McCarthy's sports columns in the Norristown Times Herald. I hardly read at all, except for classroom assignments. So when I'm asked what my favorite book as a kid was, I'll tell you that it was Babar the Elephant, famous, that is still a famous picture book. And my mother used to read it to me. And that's, I don't think I've, in those days, there was a book that I liked anymore, that affected me anymore. With Babar the Elephant, I learned one thing and didn't even know I was learning it at the time, the power of a story. And I must have asked her to read that 100 times.
That's excellent. I actually remember that book, so I know exactly what you're talking about. I thought this was very interesting. Obviously, you just said it a minute ago that writing is work. It's hard work, 90% perspiration. So what are some of your hobbies outside of writing? If writing is work, and it is, it absolutely is. What do you do to get away from it?
Well, I read. I finally became a reader. And frankly, I read murder mysteries for entertainment. That's my fun. And other than that, my free time might take me in any number of directions. Why? Because we have no fewer than 38 grandkids and great-grandkids. And when you have a tribe that big, there's always somebody doing something, somebody that wants your attention for something, something going on. So there's no lack of things to fill my non-writing time.
Well, 38 grandkids. It's a miracle you have time to actually write.
Yeah, really.
So I have one final one. I'm going to ask you to give some advice to some of the young authors out there that may be listening. But before I do that, what is going on with you right now that you want to talk about that's exciting, that maybe that you're working on, that you can give us a little sneak peek of?
Sure. Thanks for picking up for me, because I thought you might ask that. I'm holding up here. Can you
Right there is
see
perfect.
that?
Yep, Dead Wednesday.
Yeah. Dead Wednesday. What you're seeing here is a paperback. It's called an advanced reading copy, and it is sent out to reviewers before a book is published. That's how reviewers of books and movies and TV can give you information and tell you what they think of something before you can even see it. This is how it happens. They get advanced reading copies. And that's what this is for my next book coming out on August 3rd. It's called Dead Wednesday. The title was suggested to me by a teacher. I kept her letter, and she told me about this thing that they did in her middle school every year, whereby assigned to every 8th grade kid would be the name of a young man or woman who was killed in a preventable accident that year. And their job is to become that person. In other words, for one day at school, they are dead. They all wear they had something for them to wear, and everybody ignores them because they can't be seen. They're invisible. And they get a little taste of what it might be like to be dead, especially if it comes about for having, once they get to high school and starting to drink and drive or take drugs or things like that. So I always remembered that letter, and I looked for it and I couldn't find it. But I remembered the title, Dead Wednesday, what they called it at school every year. And so I just took that and cooked up my own story to go with it. And the result is this book coming out in August called Dead Wednesday.
That sounds like a very, very powerful book, and something that is obviously very, very much needed today. But you're certainly a prolific writer. How many books have you published?
It's nice to be able to say to have a problem that you're not even sure how many you've published. Obviously, that's not a problem I had back when Space Station 7th grade happened after 4 failures. But it's in the neighborhood of 38.
That's amazing. What a career. And you're still going strong. That sounds like a terrific book. Encourage everyone to go out and buy it. It'll be in the normal places, Barnes and Noble and places like that.
I would think so, yes.
Excellent. So let's finish this up maybe with a little advice for our aspiring authors out there.
Oh, sure. I've been ready with this answer for a long time because it's a question that every writer gets. And so I put some thought to it. And the thing is, I decided I'm not going to give you 10 or 20 answers. I could, and they would be good answers. But then if the aspiring writer, the young writer is sitting down, starting to write his story, it's not going to do him any good to have my 20 answers rattling around in his head. So I figured I've got to boil it down to the most important, to the golden answer. And so for me, the best advice I can give is just a couple words. Write what you care about. And when I write that out in a letter to somebody or an email, I always make sure to underline the word care. Write what you care about. And there's a sensible reason behind that, because what are you trying to do? You're trying to reach out and touch the reader. You're trying to reach right into the reader's chest and grab hold of the heart and squeeze it. That's what you're trying to do as a writer. Any writer knows that. Well, it seems to me, in other words, you want the reader to care. Well, it seems to me that you're not going to get the reader to care unless you care first. And it also seems to me that if you're writing what you care about, chances are you're going to do your best work. You may not do your best punctuationally perfect work. Your margins may be messed up. You might forget to number the pages, but the writing itself will probably be the best thing that's in you, because what's coming out of you is what you care about. So in just a few words, that's my advice. Write what you care about.
Incredible advice. Absolutely incredible advice. Jerry, thank you so much for being with us today here at Read Across America at Elmwood Park Zoo. We greatly appreciate your time, and have a great rest of the afternoon.
Thanks, Dan. Always happy.
Thank you.